All right, family, welcome back to podcast Insight into Insight, all things societal hosted by the one and only Lord Danavan Hylton. And I have with me a good friend of mine and founder of LeLann For President, LLC. And for those that do not know, LeLann For President, LLC is a two-pillar political education company offering classroom curriculum and campaign consulting. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I have my friend and founder of LeLann For President, LLC, LeLann Evans, in the house. LeLann, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. And recently, we actually, at the beginning of this year, changed the name from LeLann For President, LLC to OurFutureVoters. We got, after a few years of getting a lot of feedback from people, we did go ahead and decide to change the name from LeLann For President, LLC to OurFutureVoters, just to be more inclusive and not to confuse anyone while we were out helping other candidates campaign. But yes, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to be on here today.
Absolutely, and more than welcome. We're going to jump into a lot of the details, but just real quick, OurFutureVoters, what was the motivation for that name, and what were some of the things that you thought about when it came to contemplating a name change?
Yes, so with OurFutureVoters, I believe that it's inclusive of everyone. I know a lot of people think when they hear OurFutureVoters that we are focusing only on kids and people under 18 to educate them. But the way that I see it is that if you plan to vote in an upcoming election, regardless of how old you are, regardless of how many times you voted in the past, you are a future voter. And so I believe that our future voter is inclusive of any and everyone that is going to vote in any upcoming election. And as far as the name change, it really was making sure that we excluded or made sure that we got rid of any confusion. Politics is already confusing as is, and while it is a great icebreaker for LeLann For President, someone's like, oh, are you really running for president? And it opens that opportunity for me to answer that question and let them know political education as far as you got to be 35 to run for president, and it just sparks that question conversation immediately. But as the company started to grow, I realized that there was more people starting to give pushback towards it because they felt that it was confusing to other people as far as those who didn't know who LeLann was or if he was actually running for president, and it caused so much confusion that I didn't want my company to be confusing people. I wanted my company to be educating people, and so that's what made us go ahead and go with changing the name to OurFutureVoters.
Wow, nice. And we're definitely going to get into who LeLann Evans is, but before I do that, I'm going to ask you the question, are you ever planning on running for president, if that's the case?
I get that a lot. And I tell people all the time, if you would vote for me, then I would love to represent you. So I would not say that I would not run for president. I would love to represent our country. I would love to represent the people of America. And so I'm not saying that I won't run for president one day, but you do have to be 35 to run for president. So I still got a couple a little bit of time before I actually got to make that decision.
And this is why I'm so excited to introduce you on the show today, because majority of those in the Civics in Nashville, minimum, are familiar with your work and who you are, simply because you are consistently engaging the community, consistently. And I really feel like your line of work really is a mirror of my line of work. At the same time, you're probably one of the few professionals that I have met, emerging leaders, that has a real skill for relationships, building and managing relationships, and that's a huge skill set. Now, your focus happens to deal with in the areas of civics, but I think you're a really good business developer, if you will, someone that can represent a brand, of course your own, and can really bring a message out. And that's why I'm excited to talk with you today, because you've built a niche of bringing messages out to those that have run for office or wanting to run for office, and people entrust you who are in office to talk with you to get insight, especially when it comes to community relations at the minimum. Of course, when it comes to voting, so I definitely look forward to jumping into that. But before we get into that, if you don't mind, can you let the folks know, and from the best of you, from what you can remember, how you and I originally met, or how we originally connected? Because we've been working together alongside each other for a long time. Do you remember how we connected, or when we first started we first met?
Yeah, I am not gonna lie. I don't remember exactly when we first met. I know that it was out doing community events, and I saw you as a person, one, as an honorable man, because every time that I've ever seen you out, you have your sons with you, and it was honorable to see a black father working and being a parent and exposing his children at the same time. And I think that is, like I said, I don't remember exactly what event we were at, but that was the first time that I seen you and knew that I wanted to connect with you, just based off of the fact that you were working hard in the community, that you had your sons with you. You were explaining to them why this was important, why giving back to the community, networking within the community, and doing the work that you do is so important. And so when I think there was maybe 7, 8 years ago at this point, but I remember, like I said, I remember seeing you in the community working while also being in the community, being a father, and that inspired me in many ways.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and I really do forget sometimes. I know my boys are with me, but I forget sometimes that they're watching and they're learning so much. Like you said, with us being fathers, I mean, we definitely love, our children, and I want to be able to spend as much time as I can with them and pour into them. But so every now and then I forget they're actually learning a skill, and I'm really appreciative and thankful that you recognize that. And it just continues to humble me and just gives me more appreciation for my boys, and you deliver the same message, as far as being a father and a family man and making sure business is taken care of. And so I look at all of those things in someone's walk, and in your line of work, where it's so sensitive, civics, it's so sensitive, you walk that line very well, very well. And everywhere, anyone I talk to, as far as LeLann, I receive or hear high praise, and you try your best. So I definitely appreciate you. And really, if you don't mind, when it comes to civics, what got you started? And let's actually, before we do that, LeLann For President LLC. Can you break that down? Is it a for-profit? I'm sorry. Our future voters. And you gotta keep in mind, listeners, LeLann For President has been LeLann's brand for a while. And we'll talk about some of the stuff he's done. So we're here together for I wasn't aware, respectfully, Our Future Voters, and I think that is a dynamite name. I think it opens up so many different possibilities for you. And of course, if you still want to continue the brand of LeLann For President, that could be more of a personal brand that's still doing business, but you also have an organization where it's broad that can capture the services of civics. So I like that move. I see where you're going, and it sounds like you have a strong team around you that recognizes, what got us here won't get us there, and the phases are changing. And so, I just like the way you move. So if you don't mind, real quick, if you could break down to the listeners, Our Future Voters, as far as being the structure, nonprofit, for-profit, as well as some of the services you offer and motivation, that would be a great place to start.
Yes. So going back to what you said, as far as the LeLann For President LLC, the company is a for-profit, and it started off just as a branding name. I was doing a lot in the community as an individual with aspirations of one day running for office, and I just did a lot in the community, and the name itself started picking up around people who knew me and knew the work that I was doing, friends calling me Mr. President, and so it started off just as LeLann for President, as kind of like a joking brand, like, oh, that's LeLann for President. And the more work that I did in the community, the more that the name started to stick, and more people started recognizing me and calling me LeLann for President. And so in 2019, I took the brand name of LeLann for President and made it a company, a LLC, a for-profit, which is where the campaign consulting side of it came. I've been doing campaign consulting for a little over 10 years now, working all across the nation with state-level government, local-level government, and working on a couple different presidential campaigns as well. And so as the company started to grow and I got more experience working in campaigns, I started to realize that there was a huge gap with voter turnout, voter education, and voter engagement. And so when I started to do more work in the community and see where this gap was being made, I realized that it's because we don't teach education at an early age. And so oftentimes when we were going out into the community to get people to vote, this was their first time hearing about voting since that one semester of high school government class. And so my brand grew from just being about campaign consulting to actually wanting to educate and advocate for education in school systems so that children are being taught how the government system works at an earlier age for a longer period of time, so that way when they turned 18, it's not campaign's job to go drag people to the polls, but the community already understands how important it is to get out and vote on all levels of government in every election. And so that's where it then became a campaign consulting and a classroom curriculum political education company, which then, like I said, at the beginning of this year, I realized that this was bigger than just a brand and that this company really has the opportunity and capacity to be a nationwide company to educate the youth about political education. And so with talking to board members, we did go ahead and decide that it was time to take this beyond just a fun thing, besides just a personal hobby, and actually make it an actual for-profit company and take it to the next level. And so we started with changing the name to OurFutureVoters. We offer classroom curriculum. We offer community engagement activities and organizing. So we offer project management. So if you're looking to do a community event, if you're looking to host an event, whether it's political or just community engagement, we offer services to help manage that and consult with that. We do online trainings for campaigns. So if you're looking to do a phone banking, a text banking, canvassing, we are skilled in making sure that your volunteers have everything, every tool that they need to get out and engage with the community. And then we also offer campaign consulting as a whole. So if you're looking to run for office, we do offer campaign consulting.
And we're going to go ahead and jump into your services in a little more detail. But before we do that, we have a podcast segment that we're going to recognize, inside information presented by Hylton Elite Marketing Agency. And we want to ask you at this time, especially when it comes to when it's time to vote, no right or wrong answer. Just want to get your thoughts. When it's time to vote, what should constituents at any level keep in mind when they decide to vote for someone? Is it more a political party and that's just it? Or what are some of the things that you should look for, especially if you were decided to run for office yourself? What would you want people to know, or what should a traditional candidate present, and what should a constituent look for before they decide who to vote for?
Yes. So our future voters tagline is "Don't just vote, be politically educated."
Okay.
And so I would never suggest anyone to vote based on the premise that they are a Democrat, they were born a Democrat, their family's Democrat, so they're going to go vote Democrat. I would never tell someone that they need to vote because they have to vote, and if you don't vote, then they're a bad person or anything like that. I don't believe that voting is the one and only way to bring change to your community. So when I speak to people, or when our company goes out and speaks to the community, we ask them, what do they feel their community needs? And that's where I would say, when it's time to tell someone to go vote, look at what your needs are. Look at what you feel your community is missing. Look at the track record of the people that are running for office. What if they're an incumbent? What does their vote history look like? What have they stood on in the past? Look at where they get their funding from. Where is their money coming from? Because that's where their allegiance is going to be. They're going to stand up for those who are donating to their campaigns. And so when getting people or engaging with people in the community and telling them to go vote, is mostly about making sure that whomever they decide to vote for, again, the company is nonpartisan. So it's not about red or blue or green. We're not about party lines. We're about being educated on the candidate, being educated on the position, purpose, and power of the office that they are going to vote for. So yeah, those are the main things. Looking at the financial disclosures, looking at the track record, the vote history. If it's somebody who's not an incumbent, looking at what have they done in their community already. A lot of people get up there and say they're going to do all these different things, but they have never actually been active in their community. And so just looking at those key things, and then also factoring in what do you personally want to see done in your community, and if it aligns with those candidates.
I think you gave the listeners, including myself, a lot to think about when making a pivotal decision. And don't just vote, but be politically educated. And for someone to, one, look at their community and say, hey, what's missing? That's education. That's getting to know what is the vote history of the incumbent, or what has the individual running for office, what have they accomplished with the resources and time they've had within this district. Where is the funding coming from? You know, those are questions that a lot of individuals may overlook, and you know, and at the end, or when the term starts, or by the end of the term of the individual that end up getting the seat, a lot of people are upset or may get upset because they didn't look at those fine details. And so just for you as a company and as a brand to look at those things, we kind of get an idea of the type of candidates that you may be open to working with or representing. And I want to jump into that, as far as, now that we know as far as what a constituent should keep in mind when voting, what would your company look for in a potential candidate if they said, hey, LeLann, we obviously know that you and your team know what they're doing. We want to jump into some of your state and local experience shortly, but we obviously know that you know what you're doing. What are some of the things that your firm, our future voters, look for when it comes to someone coming to your organization and saying, hey, can you represent us or manage our campaign?
Yes. So the first thing we do is ask if they're willing to be an advocate for political education being made a priority in school. Again, our major thing is to be an advocate for political education. And so we want candidates that are willing to, once they get in office, push for political education to be taught at a minimum of all 4 years of high school. We would love for it to be started even earlier, but at a minimum, having government classes, civic education classes taught all 4 years of high school, because the most important thing we can do is preserve our future by educating our youth. And so that's the number one thing that we ask when we first get a candidate. From there, we then start looking again, if they're an incumbent, what is their vote history? What is their financial disclosure look like? But then also look at, we like to poll the community, because again, you could be a great candidate, but you could be the wrong candidate for that community. So you can be a strong candidate, you could be an incumbent, but your community has changed over time, or you haven't voted the way that your community would have liked for you to have voted over time. And so a lot of times candidate names help, name recognition help them get elected. But what I am most proud of with our company is that we haven't always taken the big name candidates. We haven't always taken the top dollar candidates, but we have run exceptionally well campaigns for our candidates, and have even unseated incumbents and unseated people with more money, because we look at the community, we see what the community is saying, what the community wants, and when we go back and talk to the person who wants to run and contract with us, we'll let them know this is what the community is saying they want in their community. This is what the community is saying they want you to vote on and vote for. And so if you are coming to us with a platform already established, then you're more than likely not going to, we're not going to contract with you, because again, we work for the community. We don't work for, we work for the candidate, but the purpose of that candidate is to work for the community. And so as the bridge, we connect good candidates to the community, and we let the candidate know what the community is asking for.
That's definitely an essential service, because what you're doing at this point is vetting the candidates, and those that, like you said, are aligned with the vision and needs of the community. You want to make sure if everything works well, that they have maximum awareness to get that seat. And so I definitely can see that approach, and saying, hey, you know, do you are you an advocate of political education at the minimum 4 years in high school, you know, each year? And have you had any, has that truly been a challenge? Because I don't think that I've had any kind of civics education in high school. I think, like you said, I may have had a class, you know, one semester, and that was it for the whole. But how challenging or difficult has it been to really push the message of more political education in school, and what type of feedback and support have you received from pushing that message?
Yeah, so I've had mixed feedback. So while working within Metro schools, I've gotten a lot of feedback from teachers saying that the kids really need this, that students really need this. I've also gotten back that because of the way that the state standard and state testing, standardized testing is, that it's been difficult for them to implement this on their own, because they have to focus on what the state is telling them. And so there is that barrier of which came first, the chicken or the egg. So it's, okay, do you start with legislation and getting the state to push for this political education agenda to be made a part of the standardized test, and then go into the schools with it? Or do you go with the schools first and see and show the teachers, show the students. That way I can take that data to the state and say, hey, here is 2 or 3 different schools who have used our services, who have used our curriculum to educate these kids. Here is data from a graduating class of 18-year-olds who have registered to vote, who plan to vote, who have voted for the first time, and take that data to show it is important that if we start educating these kids for a longer period of time, they are more likely to vote at the age of 18 and continue to vote thereafter in every election. So it's been mixed reviews.
Now, and speaking of review, I think I may have reviewed. You actually, speaking of in curriculum at school, you actually have a booklet or a activity book. I want to call it an activity book that breaks down a lot of the education that's easy for a child to understand. Is that activity book, is that the curriculum, or what does the curriculum look like, and how does that activity book tie into the curriculum?
So yes, the activity guide is material or a resource for the actual curriculum. So the curriculum itself still follows the Tennessee standard of what needs to be taught in social studies.
Okay.
So it is not the exact same, but we do follow the guidelines of the Tennessee standard. So that way, when we go into the classrooms, we're not bringing in something completely off topic of what they are needing to be taught. The workbook is a resource for the teachers to use to test, to provide activities, classroom worksheets for the students to see and gain more information. So the workbook itself can be purchased outside of the actual curriculum far as individuals. So individuals can purchase the workbook itself and still get that good information that the curriculum teaches. But the curriculum is a 9-week program that goes into more details than just what the actual workbook does.
I follow you 100%. And just for in general, how much is the workbook if a parent or guardian or adult wanted to buy a workbook for a child, and what's the best way for someone to purchase the workbook as well?
Yeah,
and as well as the name of the workbook, if you don't mind me asking.
So the workbook title is Let's Vote. We are currently in the process of updating it. When the redistricting took place last year, and then Tennessee had its long legal matter with if the maps were going to stay or not. So we got a late start on getting the new maps updated, and so we are looking to re-release the Let's Vote activity guide this coming fall with the updated maps. With that being said, at that point, the workbooks will be good for 10 years because obviously the maps won't be changing. And so the book is $12.99, and so it'll be available come August. We'll probably start doing pre-sales in July, but don't let me start speaking ahead of myself. I know I have a whole team that'll probably be like, why is he giving out the details? But so yes, in the fall we will have the Let's Vote activity guide back available, but we did have to pull it for now just to update the maps and make sure that all the information has been updated correctly for the activity guides.
So that makes sense, and we appreciate you updating that because, like you said, the maps have been changed, so that makes a lot of sense. And what are some of the topics or subjects within the workbook for the kids to check out?
Yes, so the workbook, Let's Vote, goes over from international level all the way down to local level government. And so it talks about the United States it talks about North America in relevance to the world, the global world. Then it comes from North America to the United States as a federal government. It goes then it goes even further down from the United States federal government to state government legislation. So it breaks down the Tennessee U.S. Congress, 9 districts. There's a map, color by number map for kids to color the 9 districts of Tennessee U.S. House districts. From there, it breaks it down to Tennessee state level, which goes into the 99 counties. It breaks it down into the state senate, state house districts, where it's another color by number so that kids can get a visual of what each district looks like from the state level. And then it goes into local level of Nashville politics, where they are able to see, again, your mayor, the city council, which, again, didn't want to get too ahead of myself, but with everything that's going on now, it's another reason why we've kind of been holding off on it, because as you know, Nashville may be looking different here shortly, within a couple of weeks, depending on how that vote goes. So, but it does cover everything from an international perspective, talking about different type of leadership on the global scale. So you have queen, you have a king, you have president, you have a prime minister, and it goes from talking about the global leadership to, again, the United States. Okay, you have your president, executive, judicial, and legislative branch. It goes down into, okay, now you have your state level, which is your governor and your state senators and state house representatives, and then it goes down to the local level, where it explains your mayor, city council, and things of that nature.
Wow. And very detailed, just for a workbook. And how does the workbook, I guess that's the workbook, how would, can you give me some examples of what's included in the curriculum and how the workbook supports the curriculum?
Yeah, so the curriculum goes into, I would say, more meticulous details. So as far as with the workbook, it allows you to color the states. The curriculum is going to help students in identifying geographically, okay, where is the state of Tennessee in relevance to on the map? Where is California in relevance to on the map? And so helping children learn about distance and learning about what type of terrain or what type of major mountain ranges are on the east coast of the United States, what ocean is on the west coast of the United States. And so while the workbook will focus more so on label the state of Tennessee, the curriculum will go into details as far as what mountain ranges are in the state of Tennessee, what rivers go through the state of Tennessee, and things of that nature, so that they have more detailed information. Again, it's more of a 9-week program for students to learn a full course of information, whereas the workbook is more of different activities for students to do in individual classes.
I'm with you. And is it pretty difficult to get your curriculum into the class to teach the children, or is it even difficult to get the workbook in front of kids at community events? Like, how difficult is that process to get that information to the children at this point, if at all?
So it has been more difficult to get the curriculum into the school system, whether that's due to, again, being a new, smaller company and getting the respect, I guess you could say, of a school system, a school board, to see the work that my company is able to do and provide it into a actual Metro Nashville public school or a school in general, a school district in general.
Mm-hmm.
However, there has been other programs, so smaller opportunities through churches, through nonprofits. Those have been exceptionally helpful for me as far as getting the workbooks. I have been able to get the workbook into schools. I've vendor with Metro Nashville Public Schools and actually had my workbook contracted for all fifth graders at Alex Green Elementary School, which is something I'm very proud of, seeing that the workbook was released in 2020 in the midst of COVID, and we were able to get that contract in 2021. So it shows the value of what the workbook has, what the curriculum can do, for us to be able to release it in 2020 and be able to get it contracted within the next year. But the biggest thing has been really getting people to know what they don't know and getting them to understand they need to know the information that they don't know. And so being able to have events, like I said, the workbook has been easier to get in front of people because it's something that they can look at and they can say, oh, my kid can do this right now, and they'll purchase the book and they can take it home, and their kid doesn't need a teacher to teach them. They just need to be able to look at the workbook and again, identify states or be able to color by number, and it'll give them that information. With the actual curriculum, that is, again, like I said, more so focused towards school systems, where a teacher is needed to instruct students through the process of what the curriculum is teaching.
I definitely follow you. And so it sounds like on the workbooks at this time, churches, community groups are really big supporters of getting that information out. And obviously that's a good grassroots way to build your base and your following. And while at the same time, getting into as many schools as possible to introduce the curriculum, as well as get the contract to get the curriculum in the school, seems like that's definitely something in the near future, but also one of the larger long-term goals for this educational company, is what it sounds like.
Yes, definitely.
That's all. While educating youth to senior citizens on being educated to vote, as well as still working with candidates that listen to the community, have that factor, and representing those candidates at the local or state level to get into office to eventually advocate for more public education of politics in the school.
Yes, it's a fight on all fronts. It's definitely a lot of moving parts, and a lot of people ask, how does your company do all of it? The biggest thing is understanding that you can't do one without the other. If our company just had this workbook, it would only work for the people who buy that workbook.
Yep.
If we only had the curriculum, then we would only be able to affect only the people that go to that school specifically in that classroom. If we only helped with candidates, then we would only be able to reach the district within that candidate, or only the people who actually support that candidate. And so to have a holistic approach to bringing change and to bringing education to the people, we understand that we have to be able to have great candidates, that we have to be able to engage the community, that we have to be able to get into the school system, and we have to be able to show fun activities for the kids to want to learn. So it's a four-part project, but I think is, again, the most important thing that we can do to preserve our future is to educate our youth.
I definitely want to, we need you back on the show, first and foremost. Yes. And we did not get a chance to really dive deep into your entrepreneur experience, because at the end of the day, you're an entrepreneur, and you're mentioning now brands and having to reshape, relaunch brands, and recognizing, the different moving parts to make it work. And so I know for a fact that you have some experience and learning lessons that you can share when it comes to growing a business from scratch. Like you said, it started off as just, hey, people at school was calling me president, you know. So I wasn't trying to do it. It was a lifestyle. People saw it in me to where I said, hey, let me focus on doing work in the community. And like you said, it grew into this business and this brand to the point where, hey, we had to tighten up on even our name because now we're continuing to get results, you know. And so it's civic education, but at the same time, you're also, I'm going to use the words minority business, you know, and running that and helping, you know, with all due respect, you know, Black American entrepreneurs. You're helping to set that tone and that standard and do it in a way where your service is essential to our society, you know, and making sure that it runs smooth, not just the city or state level, not just the federal level, but then you go into international. How do countries work well together? You know, so I definitely want to invite you back on the show so we can talk about your entrepreneurial experiences, because I know you have some information for those that may be starting a business or thinking about starting a business. You know, what does all that consist of? You know, what time is dedicated to that? And we didn't get a chance to really dive deep into that in this show. So if you don't mind, if I can get a commitment from you, we'll work on getting you back on the show to jump into that.
You have my full commitment. Anytime, I will make sure that I make myself available to you. Like I said, from the first day I met you, it was you're an honorable man, and so you have my commitment. Whenever you're available, I will definitely come back onto the show. And it's definitely true. The entrepreneurship side of the business has been the most daunting part. That I will definitely say, having a strong team is so important, because I did not ever imagine that I would be an entrepreneur. I didn't want to become an entrepreneur. It wasn't a part of what my passion was. I am passionate about politics and the education stuff that I do, and so running a business itself, that's a whole nother show.
We look forward to diving deep into that next show. And just for folks that want to connect with you, either for your services as far as campaigning or training in campaigns, or even wanting to get a copy of the workbook, or maybe a school district that's listening and wants to connect with you on getting your curriculum in their school district, what's the best way for folks to reach out to you?
Yes, so you can email me at LeLannEvans@gmail.com. That is LeLannEvans@gmail.com. I do public speaking, so if there is a school system that is listening, I would love to come speak to a classroom, come speak to the entire gymnasium full of students, any age range, giving them insight about political education, giving them insight about entrepreneurship, giving them insight about international travel and living abroad. You can also find me on Instagram. Instagram is at OurFutureVoters. That's OurFutureVoters. OurFutureVoters. And then Facebook, LinkedIn, OurFutureVoters. So connect with me, reach out to me. Like I said, I do public speaking, online trainings. I do campaign consulting, curriculum, and community engagement. So,
and I will say LeLann is very highly respected in the private sector, of course, in the community, and also in the public sector, working in and around civics and politics. And so we definitely thank you for your time. Make sure, listeners, that you reach out to LeLann or share this message. This is why I wanted to highlight the work that LeLann is doing with education. That's really what the focus is. And from the education, the engagement, and the transactions, all those things, you know, come with it. But I'm asking you and thanking you in advance to share this episode here and get it to the people, either be your pastor, either be, especially in Tennessee. And I know LeLann's done it. We didn't get a chance to jump too deep into it. That's why we're having him back on the show. He's done work out of state. As you heard, he has experience abroad. So we don't want to just limit this conversation to Tennessee. We just don't want to limit this conversation to the United States of America. If you don't mind, LeLann, and we're going to extend the show just a few minutes, can you talk to people a little bit about your international background experience?
Yes, so I have lived, I've been to 17 different countries. I spent 6 months in South Korea doing a study abroad program in my undergrad year, which really opened my eyes a lot to wanting to do a master's program in Paris, France. And so I have a non-governmental organization certification from Paris, France. Lived there for 2 years, studying international relations and diplomacy. Worked with the UNESCO, with Cote d'Ivoire, which is the Ivory Coast delegation. I've traveled, like I said, I've been to 17 different countries. I'm not going to go through all of them right now. We can do that at the next episode. But I've enjoyed being able to be a human being of this planet, and I think that's the best way to explain it, because a lot of times we like to get labeled and titled as so many different things, which makes us feel as if we are different than the next person. But reality is, no matter what country you're on, no matter what continent you're on, no matter what language you speak, we all still got the same blood running through us. We still have the same desires of wanting to be able to live without oppression, without fear. And so I've been, like I said, I've been to 17 countries, and I haven't met an alien. I haven't met an immigrant. I haven't met anything besides another human being. So
that's beautiful. And then we all see each other as human beings, neighbors, friends, and fellow cohabitators of this planet as a unit. So I definitely hear that. And before we wrap this show up, we do have another podcast segment of Inside Information presented by Hylton Elite Marketing Agency. It's a broad question, but if you had one piece of advice, it could be business, civics, community-related, personal, one piece of advice to leave for your listeners and from your experience of life, what would that be?
I'm going to go with international travel. I fully believe that my international experience has changed my thought process so much in so many different ways. Like I said, from growing up in America as a black man, you grow up with a certain type of mindset. You see the news, you see a lot of police killings, police brutality, and it makes you feel that the world is against you as a black man. And until you actually get to escape America and see that there are other places in the world outside of America, America's not the end-all, be-all. America's not the holy Mecca of the world. It's not the heaven on earth. You can go to another country and find just as beautiful places in other countries as you do in America. Everything's not just some desert, poor, impoverished country. There's places in Africa that are amazing. They are developed. They are thriving with hotels and everything else you can imagine. So international travel, experience something outside of your comfort zone, learn another culture. It really shapes your brain to think bigger than yourself.
And you're definitely a big thinker, reasonable, logical, but you definitely have perspectives, traveling the world that we definitely all want to tap into. So we really appreciate your time. Ladies and gentlemen, my friend and founder of OurFutureVoters, LeLann Evans, political consultant, motivational speaker, and just a good stand-up guy in the Nashville area. Please make sure you follow his work, not only through email and connecting with him through his website, but also connect with him on social media. And I can't thank you all enough in advance for sharing this episode and getting LeLann's work to your network, because you know that this is essential information. And LeLann, we just stand in agreement with you on what you're doing as a human being, the brand that you're creating, and we definitely look forward to revisiting a conversation with you to talk about your experience as an entrepreneur and what tips you can give us just so that we can continue to stay motivated in the business side as much as our passion. We definitely need that.
Yes. Well, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for having me on here again. The platform that you hold, the fact that you are willing to share it, very selfless of you, very honorable of you. Like I said, I think that's literally the best word. If I had to describe you in one word, it'd be an honorable man. And so I appreciate you allowing me to come on today.
That means a lot. You're more than welcome. And thank you, LeLann. And ladies and gentlemen, that is our episode today of Podcast Insight into Insight, all things societal. I'm your host, Lord Danavan Hylton, with our friend LeLann Evans. We wish you all continued success in your life, and we will see you on the next episode. Peace.